Hello and hello. Guys, when I opened up Reddit this morning and I saw this topic, I'm going to be honest, my first reaction was I was sad because I can't read German. Then I translated it and it made me even more sad. The USA was a disgrace to the World Cup, it says. And it really is disappointing to me, okay, to read that kind of sentiment, and this has 3.6 thousand thumbs up. It's on the of subreddit. No, it's in the r/de, which is the German subreddit, obviously. Deutschland. Have you heard of it? Because, up until this point, well, I should say up until Trump made that phone call to whatever the hell his name is, Inferno, whatever his name is, the leader of FIFA. Up until that point, the USA actually, the whole World Cup thing happening in the USA was actually exactly what we needed here in the United States. We needed some PR, some to help improve our reputation around the world, which had been dragged through the mud and essentially totally destroyed by Donald Trump. And before he got his grubby, greasy hands involved in the World Cup, it was actually accomplishing just that, It was going off quite well, all things considered, quite well. The Europeans were having a good time. The Americans were being nice. They were showing them a good time. It was like, oh, well, this is actually going off better than people thought it would. They were enjoying the air conditioning, the Europeans, here in America. It was great. Americans were showing interest in football. Soccer. Football. I have to call it soccer because football here in America is something else, So it's soccer to me. Yeah, they were showing interest in soccer. Something that, unites the rest of the world, most of the rest of the world already, united by this sport, the love of that sport. So it was all good. And then Donald Trump, of course, because anything he touches turns to shit, he had to stick his hands in it and ruin it. And so the culmination of it is, as I kind of feared, instead of walking away with this good taste in everybody's mouth, about the United States for once, in the last, especially the last couple of years, Instead, everybody's walking away, and apparently this is the opinion. The USA was not total, I put that word in there. The USA was a disgrace to the World Cup, 3.6 thousand upvotes. And that's just so sad to me. And I'm seeing clips of Donald Trump, he was getting booed at the final, as he should be. I mean, anybody in their right mind would boo that man. The sight of his image should evoke boos. And it did. And then he went on stage afterward. Well, actually before that, Inferno came in with the trophy and gave it to Trump inside his little box office, his little, shell, his bulletproof shell he was sitting in up there. For some reason they brought Donald Trump the trophy.
Finale auf Augenhöhe zu absolvieren. Tja. Und das der Verstoß gegen alle Regeln, wenn der WM-Pokal extra dem Präsidenten auf den Schoß gelegt wird. Trump und Infantino. Da haben sich zwei gesucht und gefunden. Von der Macht fasziniert und von sich selbst auch.
There you go. That was the German commentators' reaction to Inferno giving Donald Trump the trophy. I guess that's a violation of FIFA rules. Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? And of course they would be violating it because, I don't know anything about this dude, this Infantino dude, this infant man, whatever he is, infant man. That's what Donald Trump is, an infant man. And they said that they're fascinated by power and themselves. Anyway, Infantino is a disgrace to football. FIFA is a disgrace to football. Trump is a disgrace to the USA. That's true. And actually, honestly, I appreciate that, it being said like that. Because whether he's even doing it on purpose or not, the USA is different than Trump, and comparing, FIFA or football and Infantino, they are related, they are associated. All of you love football, but you hate Infantino. That's how I feel about the USA. I love the USA. I hate Trump. So I like to see other people, drawing a distinction between the two. That at least makes me happy. Argentina's performance yesterday wasn't exactly top-notch either. That was a perfect fit for FIFA. I was just about to say that this World Cup has actually shown quite well how awful FIFA really is. Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about the FIFA organization other than what I've seen this World Cup. And, you know, just before this World Cup, they like invented a peace prize and gave that to Donald Trump, which was, calling it a red flag is, it feels like it's underselling it. You know, I don't know what that was. That was insane. They invented a peace prize just to give it to Donald Trump to appease him and his psychosis. You know, I mean, that should have that really told you anything you needed to know. I'm still confused by that. I don't even understand it. What does it mean to get a peace prize by a soccer organization? The man doesn't even know, and he says this himself. You know, Trump says he doesn't know anything about soccer. And why would he? So, but why is why is FIFA awarding a man who doesn't know anything about soccer a FIFA prize? And why is FIFA, who doesn't know anything about world peace, creating a peace prize? And then, of course, to even compound the irony, like you're giving it to Donald Trump, who renamed the Department of Defense here in the United States to the Department of War and has already started a war and used the American military to intervene, you know, in Venezuela and other things in just the last year. And you're giving him a peace prize? Anyway, that's, yeah, beyond that, I don't know how did this man Infantina get in charge? I feel like this bot, I don't know anything about FIFA, like I have made clear, but like, I feel like the game of soccer is so gigantic, so world-renowned, so important that it almost shouldn't even have a single man in charge, first of all. And if it does, they should be elected. Like, by who? I'm not exactly sure, but, you know, it should be like a decentralized organization. Whatever the case, it should not be the case that everybody hates the man in charge. Like, all the football fans should not hate the person who leads FIFA. I think they're a perfect match. Endlessly corrupt and turbo capitalist. Couldn't be a better fit. Turbo capitalist. That is, you know what? I mean, I have to defend capitalism for a moment. Trump is not turbo capitalist. Trump is just turbo Trump. He doesn't have any principles, you know, whether or not you agree with capitalism, whatever, but Trump is not a capitalist. He's not a principled man in any way. I mean, he's very stupid. He's very low IQ. He doesn't even have the capacity to, like, have opinion, like, really actually, like, interesting opinions about how the system should work, or let alone which system would be better, or the intricacies of it. Just to show you very quickly how not capitalist Donald Trump is, here's a post he made. I'm not sure if this is the recent one. He's made multiple like this. It's pretty recent, but he actually made another one just like 2 days ago. He posts so much on his stupid Ministry of Truth thing, it's hard to even find it, but whatever. Point is, he's saying gasoline retailers must get their prices down immediately. They're too high considering oil is now $68 a barrel heading south. Drop it for the American people. There will be no gouging, price gouging, which is totally illegal. If retailers do this, big problems lie ahead. So there you go. I mean, obviously that right there illustrates he's not a capitalist. He's just a moron that will swing whatever way the wind blows if it means he feels like he can consolidate more power and money. That's it. Here's another one. The big oil companies are not dropping their price at the pump. With sharply lower prices they're paying for oil, these prices should be dropping like a rock. In other words, customers are being gouged. I've instructed the Department of Justice to immediately start looking into this. He makes tweets like this all the time. This is the fourth one that I've seen. And to the extent that he would even consider himself a capitalist, it is only through as much as it is because he's rich and doesn't want to pay high taxes. And he knows, you know, like a capitalist, typically more capitalist system generally has lower taxes for rich people. You know what I'm saying? Like a less progressive tax rate. So that's the only reason he's a capitalist, you know? A corrupt FIFA meets a highly corrupt USA. It doesn't get any better than this. It doesn't get any worse than this. And especially the fact that FIFA arranged it so that the USA can host it again in 12 years. Really? I would go even further and say FIFA is a disgrace to the World Cup and to football itself. You know, I actually do agree with this, and trust me, as I've made clear, this is no defense of Donald Trump. But, you know, it is... The onus is really on FIFA. You know, Donald Trump is a known, disgusting, filthy pig. A rabid, aggressive, filthy pig. And, you know, Infantino has the keys to the Sistine Chapel, which is soccer, FIFA. For whatever reason, you know, he's a moron, apparently. I don't know anything about him, but he's a moron, and he opened the door, you know, and said, come on in. Come on in, little piggy. Make yourself at home. In this instance, that's more FIFA's fault than it is Donald Trump's fault. We all know Donald Trump's a stupid, arrogant, filthy pig, and anything he touches turns to poop. So why did they let him in? They're stupid. But hey, the main thing is FIFA rakes in the cash. I'm already looking forward to 2034 in Saudi Arabia, where there will probably be drinking breaks during public. Infantino is just the biggest groupie of autocrats. Ooh, let's not forget that FIFA is to blame. Yeah. That was a terrible World Cup, plain and simple. A 25-minute halftime break. I'm curious how long the halftime typically is. You know, of course, I don't normally... I shouldn't say of course, but, you know, I've never watched before. 15 minutes. Okay, so it was extended to 25 minutes. You know, I mean, I just don't get really as outraged. Maybe it's because I don't know. It could definitely be in part that I just don't have an appreciation, as big of an appreciation for the sanctity of the game in this regard as other, you know, much, you know, real soccer fans do. And what I'm saying is that, like, turning a 15-minute break into a 25-minute break sounds dumb, but, like, you know, that's not really what was so tragic about this World Cup. The hydration breaks, that's worse, right? Because you're interrupting the play, which is the integrity of the game, you know. To interrupt the play, to have a commercial break is bad. Frankly, though, doesn't even register on my, you know, bullshit meter compared to this one, Trump influencing the referee's decisions. That's literally insane. That's a different level, you know what I mean? Like, if you say, hey, we need to add in these commercial breaks to make this, you know, more sustainable to have a tournament this large, I don't, you know, it's whatever. To me. But having a, you know, the host or any other head of state or anybody outside the organization, you know, like a game, a sporting event, you know, it's supposed to be this beautiful thing where it's run entirely on a protocol that's written in stone, you know, like a constitution. You know, you cannot bend or break the rules. It can't be influenced. It's any amount of like discretion by any individual referee or anything should be minimized as much as possible, you know, so that you can make the competition as true as possible. And having someone totally outside the organization, oh my God, you know, use his power and influence over the world to influence, you know, literally what's happening on the field of a World Cup match. It's causing, I might have some kind of stroke or something. I might have a seizure thinking about it. It's disgusting. There absolutely needs to be some kind of consequences, you know. There needs to be a revolution in FIFA. Just because that happened, you know, that shows that something needs to change. Because the game of soccer is bigger than FIFA. And if FIFA cannot be trusted, you know, to protect the sanctity and integrity of the game and the competition, then they shouldn't be allowed to do it. The whole World Cup charade is a disgrace and has been for years. This year it was the version with maximum corruption in the land of burgeoning fascism at the feet of the orange child oh, yeah. I thought that said monster at first. I can't say that word. Absolutely disgusting. I have no idea how anyone can still watch this since the Russian World Cup. I will say, at least from my perspective, and I have an optimistic perspective about things in general. So, people can call me naive. I don't really care. It's fine. It's my honest opinion is that, calling it burgeoning fascism, which implies that it's, going to grow. I have optimism that that's not true. I think this is the peak. This is the worst it will get. It's much worse than it ever should have been, in terms of allowing a president of the United States to undermine the checks and balances that are in place by the Constitution and the Constitution itself, of course. I think that we're at essentially like peak bad. I think that the midterm elections, well, peak bad will probably come at the midterm elections when Trump undoubtedly tries to undermine, the democratic process itself, which of course he has already done by implying that the elections are fake, and not just implying, but saying they are. He will attempt to pass some kind of, there will be some kind of crazy event, like he will attempt to redo the midterm elections or delay them or disenfranchise people on a massive scale. So we'll see what comes of that. But I think, honestly, despite all his best efforts, MAGA will be crushed in the midterm elections. That's my prediction, which will greatly handicap Trump's power. And Congress will be capable of maybe trying to undo some of the ridiculous things that have been done. That's my hope. I'm sticking to it. Now, with that said, just to be clear on my prediction, that does not mean the shit show is over. Like, I think it will get worse. Like, Donald Trump himself will get worse and worse and worse. The things he says and attempts to do will get worse and worse and worse. It's just that I think there will be a bigger and bigger reaction to it. And maybe it will end in an impeachment and removal. We'll see. Who knew this was coming? Honestly, like I just said, I'm typically optimistic. So, honestly, at first I thought it would be bad. And then it was actually going really good. And I was very happy, the whole World Cup thing here in North America. And then, of course, Trump had to ruin it. So, yeah, fuck. Not the USA per se. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. But the orange potato with the full diaper and its hairless ass kisser. That's the infant child, right? Infant man. The majority of the people the fans interacted with were very nice and happy about the visit. Well, it's not that simple. Oh, yeah. Trump was elected twice and still enjoys. Well, he was elected. That's true. Yes. Unfortunately, that's true. It was true. But, of course, at least in my opinion, he was elected on false pretenses. The first time, in my opinion, this second term is triple, quadruple as bad as his first term. His first term was just, bad, The second term is, devastatingly bad. And in my opinion, and you can look at, his approval rating, and even more so just anecdotally existing in a conservative region. There's no more MAGA flags being flown, man. They're gone. They're all gone. And you have to understand that's pretty profound. They're all gone. For a while there, the MAGA flag was almost up there, as blasphemous as it is, with the American flag, which is disgusting. And, being flown everywhere, people flying them on their tailgates, down the highway all the time, every day. And it's gone. They're all gone. I haven't seen any. I don't hear anybody. I barely see any bumper stickers even. The base is whittled away. And and that's something that the poll numbers don't entirely illustrate, because you might say, but the poll numbers still show he's got some support. Like, yeah, he does. It's just a lot more tepid, sad support, like people, yeah, of course I still support Trump, yeah. Whereas before it was, Trump, you MAGA, let's go. But he's backstabbed them, is what I'm saying. So he was elected on false pretenses. No one elected Donald Trump to make an ass out of the United States and to destroy our relationship with the rest of the world. They didn't do that. I know for a fact, I'm here I live here in a conservative region. I know exactly why they elected him, It was mostly just because it was a reaction to the woke stuff. That's it. As like devastating as it is, that the consequence of just like the whole woke thing, the pronouns thing, men can transition and play in women's sports thing, men can use the women's bathroom thing, all that stuff. Oh, you have to say your pronouns now when you introduce yourself. The reaction to that, Donald Trump easily capitalized. He recognized that it's an easy thing to capitalize, that a lot of people didn't like that, and so he was just like, no, we're not going to do that, and screw all that, and that got a lot of people excited. Woo, anti-woke, let's go. That's why they elected him, not to make an ass, not to start a war in Iran, not to make an ass out of ourselves and destroy all of our alliances, not for inflation, high tariffs that cause inflation. Anyway, let me continue this. It still enjoys high approval ratings among Republicans. I already covered that, so there you go. Even completely absurd political ideas like the military subjugation of Canada and Greenland find considerable support. It's very tepid support, man. It is a cult. You have to understand that MAGA at its core, the core members, it's a cult. It's a cult of personality. So anything Trump says and does, if for as long as they are still in the cult, they say they support it, right? But imagine it like it's a cult, imagine just a small cult of people, and it's, it's like the leader's getting crazier and crazier, and the people in the cult who were, no defense of them, they decided to join the cult, and, I'm not impressed by that decision, but now they're looking around at each other like, so he's telling, we're supposed to drink this Kool-Aid? Yeah, okay, yeah, we still support you, but are you sure? That's the kind of vibe. Furthermore, the U.S. also has structures that are detrimental to sports as a whole. These include excessive entry controls for people from hostile states, ticket scalping, a lack of infrastructure. It's just utterly wrong. Sorry, I'm done with this post. This one's clearly, I understand the anti-American sentiment. Thanks to Donald Trump, in a lot of ways we deserve it. But this, for example, is just like exorbitant hotel prices. I just, once you say a lack of infrastructure, it's like, for a sporting event, no, that's wrong. FIFA is a disgrace to football. Infantino is even more corrupt than Blatter. Blatter? VAR is one of the dumbest rules in a long time. Yeah, as an outsider, seeing them go back to, and this is a problem in a lot of other sports as well now, but seeing them go back to the camera like that in the middle of, and it's over something relatively small that, wasn't seen and wasn't like an egregious, violation of the rules, and, undo a goal that happened, 30 seconds later after this after this violation that no one saw, and undo the goal and say, no, we have to go back in time because this guy, stepped on his foot 2 minutes ago. It's like, what? Unfortunately, it was extremely successful. The USA has shown FIFA how much more money can be made from football. That will continue. I don't know the numbers. I didn't know did they make a bunch more money? Was their profit margin way higher this World Cup than other ones? I have no idea. So That is how things tend to go, though. You know, it's kind of like video games or anything else, where it's like once they've realized, oh, we can squeeze out an extra, you know, nickel from each person, you know, on average every, you know, 15 days, you know, by having microtransactions on every other screen, you know, and then so of course that becomes the industry standard type thing to do. So I would not be surprised if there is truth to that. Trump and Infantino, pest and cholera. Ew. All right, I'm done, guys. That was very interesting. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.